What's going on, everybody? Just here to give my live reaction to a interview that was done by Newsweek through the New York Post that came to light recently with Ryan Routh, who is the alleged suspected assassin that attempted the assassination of former President Donald J. Trump. I'm going to give my live reaction to this. I did a little bit of research on this and just give my thoughts and opinions. Again, these are my opinions based off of my reaction to this video. To start out with, first off, this man, Ryan Routh, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, comes off very patriotic with the American flag as a shirt, the dyed hair, this white and blue. What the intents are behind the hair, I don't know. He looks old in age. I'm unclear of his age at this point. I know it's in the 50s, but I believe he does specify that in this video that was conducted in 2022. So without further ado, please like and subscribe. Leave your comments, whether they're negative or positive. Just give me your feedback.
I'm 56 from the U.S.
There we go,
from North
56 years
Carolina
old.
originally. So I live in Hawaii now. So flew all the way from Hawaii here. So the question as far as why I'm here, to me, a lot of the other conflicts are gray, but this conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil. This is a storybook. Any movie we've ever watched, this is definitely evil against good. I mean, we're battling a situation here where the Ukrainians and the rest of the world are caring and kind and generous and unselfish and take care of one another. And it's just a matter of, we need to stand up for that. That is the most important thing in the world, is just to show human beings that we're kind and we're caring and that we take care of one another and that the world is united. So
I'm gonna give my thoughts on that. That's one man's opinion, that the rest of the world is kind and caring and thoughtful and generous. I don't know what specific countries he's talking about. I'm sure there's a lot of countries out there that are, or that fall within those definitions, but there's a lot of other countries that do not. So, that's one man's opinion, right? And it's all about the lens that you're looking through. Where you come from in the world, what your country's stance is on conflicts throughout the world, in my opinion.
that we feed each other and make sure that we all move forward as one collective whole unit. So we feel the pain of one country's failure and their conflicts, and we enjoy the successes of other countries that are doing good, and we all work together. And for some reason, Russia does not grasp this concept that we're all one unit, and we have to get along and work together. And
I will agree with him there, on a global scale. Maybe the little things don't impact us in our daily lives, but on a global scale, conflicts like the Ukrainian Russian war, it impacts the world, right? If the United States goes to war with another country, it impacts the world. From an economic standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, it has it transcends globally. So I do agree with this man on this point.
be normal human beings. This is 2022. We have to work together. It seems asinine that we have a leader in a country that does not understand the concept of being unselfish and being generous and being kind, and just the basic moral values that are required by human beings these days.
And to clarify here, when he says a leader of a country, I'm under the pretense that he's talking about Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia.
It blows my mind.
And what are you doing here in Ukraine?
My initial goal was to come and fight. I think everybody around the globe should be motivated to come here and support the Ukrainians and support the army, no matter what gender, age, anything. Everybody should be here supporting the army. But I'm 56, so initially they were like, "Well, I have no military experience," so they're like, "You're not an ideal candidate." So they said, "Not right this minute." So Plan B was to come here to Kyiv and promote getting more people here. We
So just to give some insight on him speaking about his job over there is to recruit and get more volunteers to go over there. There's an article that came out of Columbia Undergraduate Law Review, and the title of it is Heroes or Criminals: The Legality of American Volunteers in the Russian-Ukrainian War. And it's written by Philip Yan, October 12th, 2022. And the notes that I took away from it was basically it's not illegal for an American citizen to volunteer in the Ukraine under current U.S. law, given they are recruited through passive keyword channels. Over 20,000 volunteers have joined the Ukrainian armed forces, of which an estimated several thousand are American citizens. Uh, it becomes a big gray area because most normal everyday citizens don't know all of the laws that have been passed, and a couple of them are, for instance, Congress passed the Neutrality Act of 1794. The act makes it a misdemeanor for any person within the jurisdiction of the United States to prepare a means for any military expedition against the territory or dominions of any foreign prince or state with whom the United States is at peace, with revisions and amendments over the next 2 centuries, such as the Neutrality Act of 1818. The law was later adapted and codified into its current form as 18 U.S. Code 960, Expedition Against Friendly Nation. Besides the rephrasing of a few elements, it has largely retained the content of the original Neutrality Act, with the only change being that instead of a misdemeanor, the charged individual shall be fined under the title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both. The Expatriation Act of 1954 states that citizens can lose their citizenship if they either enlist as an officer in any military or enlist in any position in a military currently at war with the United States. However, a 1986 amendment to the act added that in both cases, citizens must do so with the intention of relinquishing United States nationality. At the same time, updates regarding domestic terrorism in 8 U.S. Code 2332 criminal penalties from the USA Patriot Act of 2001 criminalize volunteers if the host nation is considered a terrorist group, punishing them with imprisonment. As the United States is not currently at war with the Ukraine, nor is Ukraine on the U.S. government's list of state sponsors of terrorism, the status of the Ukraine would not make U.S. citizens volunteer in the Ukraine, in this case, prohibited. Excuse my phone. The Neutrality Act and the following Expedition Against Friendly Nation Act do not generally preclude American citizens from volunteering to fight for foreign nations, but rather identify specific circumstances under which doing so would be illegal. In order for the Expedition Against Friendly Nations Act to apply, volunteers must have organized a military or naval expedition or enterprise within the physical jurisdiction of the United States. This can be interpreted as where the United States exercises its sovereignty, namely U.S. states, U.S. territories, and U.S. territorial sea. Therefore, it does not prohibit individuals from going abroad for the purpose of enlisted in a foreign army. Reasonings used to determine jurisdiction over websites hosted outside physical jurisdiction through the interactive versus passive, both keywords interactive versus passive lens, can be applied to online recruitment websites for the Ukrainian conflict. The official website created by the Ukrainian government for volunteering in the Ukraine, fightforua.org, merely provides instructions and recommendations for potential volunteers rather than actively engaging in the process of recruiting volunteers online. The actual contracts between the volunteers and the Ukraine military, which represent recruitment, are signed only when the volunteer arrives in the Ukraine. Therefore, the website should be classified as passive, with the actual recruitment of volunteers occurring outside the U.S. jurisdiction in Ukraine. However, this is big. It is also important to note that the classification of interactive or passive requires a case-by-case analysis and does not mean that all other websites seeking volunteers for Ukraine, should others exist, necessarily also fall into the passive classification. The process of classification will require an examination of the specific features and elements of each website, and whether or not they support two-way online communications and bilateral relationship between the user and the party running the website. If another website were classified as interactive, this could mean the volunteering through it could be considered to be done within the territory of jurisdiction of the United States, thus subject to prosecution. Basically, at the end of this, the Neutrality Act 1794, from the legality of U.S. citizens volunteering in Ukraine, it basically says if you go through their official website, it's allowed. Volunteers can volunteer through the official channels to fight in that cause. Believing in a cause for humanity, right? He feels like this war is unjust. A lot of civilians are dying. There's a lot of casualties, and it shouldn't be happening, right? But how do you take a turn for the worst and go from a person like you see here in this interview to a very radical, different person here in 2024, being the alleged suspect to the second assassination attempt of Donald J. Trump? How do you go from this man here in the video to attempting an assassination of a former president? And that's why I'm here watching this video.
And we're at a point where, all right, are we going to stand for humanity, for human rights, for everything that is good with the world? Or are we just going to ignore it? If everybody is complacent and doesn't join this fight, then guess who's going to win? It might take 10 years, but we're going to lose this battle if everyone around the globe does not stop what they're doing and get off the couch and come to Ukraine and defend the human rights of everyone around the globe.
Now, did this man believe that with the most recent debate and the campaign trails, a lot of the propaganda that's being spread around, that Donald Trump in multiple interviews has said, before I even get into office as the elect, I will have this war stopped. And there's been rumor and propaganda thrown out there that, and I've heard it myself, that the way the Ukraine-Russia war would stop is that Donald Trump would just give Russia the Ukraine. All of Ukraine. Now, me personally, I find that very hard to believe, just based off of the fact that if you look at this guy's ego, if you look at the way he carries himself, he's a very competitive person. I mean, the guy can't even have a debate with a man that basically is not cognitive at this point without arguing about whose golf swing is better. So for me to just blindly believe that this man would just give up a key location in that part of the world to the Russians and give in, I find that very hard to believe, but that's me. Maybe other people may have heard that notion, the propaganda, and maybe that could be a contributing factor to why it drove this man to allegedly attempt an assassination on the former president.
This is the most important thing going on in the world today. So sitting around and letting life go on as normal and complaining about gas prices and complaining about, you know, your luxury life in whatever country you live in is unacceptable. As human beings, we must support each other. We cannot turn our backs on anyone around the world and expect the problem to go away. So I've been dealing with Russia for my entire life. You know, we had one period where it was okay, but now we've let it slip back into terrorism. So it's just, the world needs to respond.
I'd like to know what period he was talking about, from what time frame. He doesn't class or clarify that, so I'm not sure when he's speaking about that Russia was okay.
You know, why world leaders are not sending military is beyond me. We're going to have to elect new leaders the next go around that have a backbone and that, you know, have the fortitude to say, hey, we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior. This type of behavior is unacceptable anywhere, any place, you know. So it's totally unacceptable. And why people are not responding, I do not know.
What impressed you the most since you are here?
My trip to Irpin was pretty emotional. So, you know, going and seeing the buildings that were burned and destroyed and things of that nature. I think more emotional for me is just talking to the guys that have come here. You know, when you talk to a 20-year-old guy that sold everything he owns to come here to fight, that is heroism. You know, he's coming here to risk his life for humanity, for the Ukrainians. You know, guys that sell everything they own to come here and support the Ukrainians while others sit at home and do nothing.
Just my reaction on that, my input is that obviously this man has seen things, heard stories, spoke with people that may no longer be here, seen the sacrifices that a lot of individuals made, and that can have a huge impact on your psyche, right? It can have a huge impact on who you become from that point going forward. And as a combat veteran, I can speak from personal experiences. I can speak from personal experiences where I've had conversations with buddies, with brothers, a day prior, 8 hours prior to a mission, and then was never able to have another conversation with that individual again. When you know individual's backstory, their family story, you know, their upbringing has an even more of an impact on who you are and who you'll be going forward. So I can sympathize with this man on that alone. Like, I get what's impacting him. Still trying to figure out where the turn happened, and this may be the turn. His time that he served over in the Ukraine, dealing with all those organizations.
You know, it's totally mind-blowing how we have this divide of people that are selfless and courageous and wonderful and willing to sell everything they own to come here and support, keep people from getting killed, to shelter kids and protect Ukrainians, and others that just, want to sit at home and not. It's just, it's an indictment of our entire human society to say, hey, where do we stand? Do we stand for good, or do we just not care? I mean, does the world not care? That's the feeling that I wrestle with every day in my interactions with everybody. You know, every one of us is responsible for the outcome of this war. Every one of us, you know, by our actions and what we do. And, you know, when I call back home and say, hey, I need $5 so I can, you know, put enough money together to get a vest for a Ukrainian, and I get no response, I'm like, I'm not sure that the world is as wonderful as I once thought it was. I had thought that everyone would respond, you know, very generously and unselfishly, and you know, you don't have to come, but you know, if I ask for $5 to buy a vest to save a Ukrainian life, it seems like that would be a no-brainer. But I increasingly get more disappointed in humanity.
All right, so this man's complaining about $5 vest and calling some friends and trying to get the funds to get vests to make Ukrainian soldiers safe. And to me, you know, you need to choose your circle carefully. I pulled up some information up on Wikipedia, just some stats on what the US alone was contributing at the time around 2022 when he made this video. And things that I came away with was under Obama, 23 million of humanitarian aid on 21 November 2014, way before, right? Biden administration, 1 billion in food, medicine, water, and other supplies on March 24th, 2022. On May 23rd, the Bureau of Internal Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs provided 21 armored SUVs to the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine and the Ukrainian police. Additional vehicles donated on June 2nd. On June 2nd, which were 25 Mitsubishi L200 pickup trucks, 35 Renault Duster SUVs, 16 4x4 personal carriers, and 13 cargo trucks. On May 24th, $4 million provided to the Halo Trust for Ordnance Disposal in Ukraine to help get rid of a lot of the ordnance, obviously, to make it safe for the civilians. On June 15th, the United States government announced it would provide an additional $225 million in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. A month later, July 9th, the United States government announced it would provide an additional $368 million in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. On September 26, 2022, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken announced $457.5 million worth of civilian security assistance will be provided to the Ukraine. On February 23, 2023, the United States Department awarded the Charity Minds Advisory Group $8 million for operations in Ukraine. June 16, 2023, United States Department announced it would be providing $205 million worth of humanitarian aid to the Ukraine. Along with that, they donated 9 Sky Duo 2+ drones donated by USAID to help document Russian war crimes in Ukraine. So to hold somebody accountable for the injustices that are happening over in that part of the world. $1 million to the International Center for the Prosecution of Crime of Aggression Against Ukraine was awarded. 16 grain trailers donated to the Ukrainian farmers, and then 6 armored 4x4 vehicles donated by the U.S. Department of State to the Office of the Prosecutor General to aid in investigating Russian war crimes. So, to me, if I'm just listening to this and I don't do a little bit of research, you know, I'm gonna sympathize and I'm gonna say, man, like nobody's donating anything for a $5 bulletproof vest. I don't know where in the world bulletproof vests cost $5, but it's possible. But in this neck of the woods, it's not. What I can tell you is that if you look at the numbers of what's being donated alone from the United States, it goes on and on and on, right? Where's the money going? What is the Ukrainian government doing with their money? They're not allocating their funds properly. If I was to go over here on the Wikipedia list, right? And this is just for 2022, 2023. These are all the countries that have donated to the Ukraine during this war, right? And I don't know how many countries there are. but I'm sure that there's a ton. So again, this guy, he's there with a purpose. He believes he's doing it, like it's a just cause. He's trying to play his part in a very bad situation, but he's a very bottom of the totem pole. Like he only has access to boots on ground. What's happening at a higher level? Where's that money going? And I don't understand. Like I understand being mad and upset at the situation at hand, but you got to look at the bigger picture. And I'm wondering if maybe seeing atrocities like that, like soldiers fighting without proper equipment, led him to turn and do what he did currently in 2024.
I'm beginning to question whether or not we're going to end up on the right side of this equation.
So you are working with the International Legion,
Yes.
and you are trying to convince people to help, to donate, and to join.
Yeah.
My final question is, what would you say to the people in order to convince them to join the International Legion, or to donate for it, or to be involved in the humanitarian aid to Ukraine?
Right. It's just extremely important, the whole thing. As far as joining the military, yes, if you have some military experience or know people with military experience, encouraging them to come and fight. We have units all over the place. So, there were some leadership issues initially, but we've got so many units available to us: Georgian, Crimean, Ukrainian, Territorial Defense, Foreign Legion. We have, so many paramilitary groups. I put a 74-year-old Japanese guy in a unit. So, we have girls in units.
That's my other question here, right? He's 56 at the time of this, I believe he said. And he said in his statement in this interview that due to his age and not having a military background, he wasn't allowed to join a fighting force. And maybe the deciding factor was he didn't have a military background. And maybe this Japanese man that is 74 years old had a military background. But it's just ironic to me that he couldn't join a fighting force 20 plus years younger than a man that he put into a fighting force. I'm also under the belief that when actively talking to these organizations prior to flying overseas, you already kind of have a game plan set in stone. So he knew prior to going over there, and this is my assumption, that he wasn't going to be part of a fighting force. There's nothing wrong with going over there knowing that you're going to be that figure, that person that is bringing light to a situation and trying to recruit more members or get people to donate more materials, money, items. There's nothing that's not noble about that. Like, I agree with it. I'm not shaming it. It's, again, there's a lot of conflicting things here.
Units. So we have two girls that are in the unit up the street. So any gender, any age, any skill level to no skill level. But yeah, if you want to fight, come here and see me, and I'll put you in a unit so you can go fight. But regardless of that, we should have thousands upon thousands of people standing here with the Ukrainians. This Maiden Square, Independence Square, we should have millions of people in this square, filling the square from every country around the world. And while we don't, I don't understand. I'm here every day with all the flags from all the supporting countries, with the memorials for the people that have died. And, several people come, but just a handful, So it blows my mind that I'm standing here alone without thousands of people from every country, from Asia, from Africa, from Australia, from Canada, from everywhere in South America, every place.
Europe.
Europe, everywhere. We need everybody here. You know, if you have no skills, just come. You know, we need to be cheerleaders. Just being here and saying, hey, I support the Ukrainians, and I support human rights, and I support good and generosity and caring and kindness and altruism, and it's just, you know, we.
The one thing I will add to that, the caveat to that, is you don't need to be in that location to do that, right? People can do that from their hosting countries within their own country, as long as the media gets a hold of it and you're able to just push it through the media and the internet, right? And let the exposure get out there. You're conveying the same message, right? And you're getting more eyeballs on it. Whether you're in Kyiv, the Ukraine, anywhere in the Ukraine, or if you're in Europe, or if you're in Japan, or if you're in, you know, Italy, the United States, South America, wherever you are, as long as it's getting publicity, it will reach the eyes and the ears of those leaders that are in control of this whole situation, and they have a hand in it.
We need to show the world that we care, and it's essential. You know, if you don't do any work at all, just being here and supporting and showing them that we care for our fellow human beings is the most important thing we can do.